Hello and welcome to the 2024 American Psychiatric Association annual meeting, Psychiatric News, Highlights video series. I'm Dr. Adrian Preda, the Editor-in-Chief of Psychiatric News, and my guest today is Dr. Jesse Ehrenfeld. Dr. Ehrenfeld, you are the American Medical Association President.
Yes, thank you for having me today.
It's very nice having you. I'm seeing you following your presidential lecture on AI applications in mental health.
It was a lot of fun to talk this morning, and I have a background in clinical informatics. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm an anesthesiologist, but I've been doing decision support in AI development for nearly 20 years. And so it was a real treat to be able to share some perspective from my work at the AMA around where is digital medicine going, what's happening, and some of the challenges and opportunities that are ahead of us. I really enjoyed that today.
And it was a fantastic lecture. Thank you. So I'm curious, how did you become interested in informatics, and how did you get from informatics into being interested in AI?
Well, I was always kind of a computer geek in school. I won the 6th grade computer fair growing up in Wilmington, Delaware. And when I got to residency, I found a mentor in my field of anesthesiology who's very interested in technology and innovation and new care model development, backstopped by some of these innovations, and I was hooked. So I thought I would be a private practice anesthesiologist, never imagined myself doing research or having a research career. And all of a sudden, I found myself funded through a fellowship, and then having sustained funding through NIH and Department of Defense and other agencies. And so I ran a research division for 9 years, for a long time, doing foundational informatics development work to figure out how can we use these digital tools to improve reliability, improve accessibility, and ultimately drive patient outcomes in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. So you have been part of the AI development for a while. We are just learning about it. It's a new thing for us in medicine, really. And we all know that there is a lot of hype out there about AI in general, but also AI possible medical applications. Mm-hmm. So with what's happening right now, what do you think? Is it more of the science or more of the hype that's driving the developments of AI in medicine?
Well, there's an unbelievable amount of money being thrown at the development of digital tools. The venture capital market, private equity-backed approaches to bringing these things to the marketplace is driving a lot of development. Now, unfortunately, a lot of that development is completely disconnected from the clinical realities that psychiatrists and clinicians writ large face. The AMA is working hard to solve that, to try to create the connection between what we know our patients actually need and experience, what we know physicians need when they're trying to use these tools, what the companies are bringing into the marketplace. So the AMA has a foundational policy that we started working on in 2016. So it's not totally new for us, but we just released a major revision of our AI framework in 2023 as things have changed. Large language models. What are the ethics of developing these tools using information? There's a lot that still needs to be sorted out, but I'm optimistic, certainly, that there will be some utility, but it's going to be a bumpy road. And we are at the top of the hype curve. That is clear to me. But there will definitely be opportunities for these tools to make a difference. 40% of US practices today use them, but it's back-end office work, scheduling, supply chain management, billing, fighting insurance companies for prior authorization using automated tools. Those are the things that are in use at scale today. Digital scribe technologies. The things around decision support for clinical decision, prescribing, a therapy chatbot, right? Those kinds of tools, people are very interested, but we haven't seen them at scale or in ways that have shown clinical effectiveness.
Through the many lines of development, what are the developments that you are most excited about?
Well, unfortunately, physicians today spend 2 hours on administrative paperwork or typing into the HR for every 1 hour they spend talking to a patient, in front of a patient, examining patients. We've got to flip that, right? It should be the other way around. That's why we went to medical school. So I'm really enthusiastic about the opportunity for these tools to get rid of the administrative hassles, to detether us from our computers, to allow us to do what is really the value that we provide, which is that human connectivity with our patients that we serve.
So that would be great. I spend a lot of time documenting. It does take an enormous amount of time. I think one of the questions there is going to be privacy issues.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, privacy, cybersecurity, they are certainly issues everywhere throughout the profession, but particularly in mental health and with psychiatry. Patients need and have a reasonable expectation of privacy when they come into the exam room and they have a conversation with you. And so obviously, as these digital tools are developed, it's absolutely critically important to make sure that there's a clear understanding of where information is going, who it's being shared with, how it's being treated, how it's being protected. And until we have clarity around, some of those issues, I think there's going to be reluctance to trust these tools, particularly in sensitive settings like a psychiatric interview.
Mm-hmm. So as we think about possibilities, what about the possibility for clinical applications in general in medicine, and also maybe then more specific to psychiatry and mental health?
Yeah, we're seeing some really exciting things. The first FDA-approved autonomous AI tool is in the diabetic retinopathy space. And it's a really interesting product. It basically is a little set-top box, and a high school-trained person can put a patient in front of it, and it can diagnose diabetic retinopathy. Why is that important? Why is that exciting? Well, we have millions of patients with diabetes. All of them should have an annual eye exam. All of them don't, because we do not have enough ophthalmologists to do the exams. Suddenly, with this device, you can screen anyone you want in the world at any time, right? So you see how it can scale the capacity of our teams. And now ophthalmologists are only seeing and treating people with the disease. They're not doing normal screening exams. It changes the workflow entirely. I expect that paradigm can happen in many specialties, including psychiatry, where it becomes a force multiplier, a way to augment the capacity and capabilities of our teams. And we so desperately need that because, as you know, we have such critical workforce shortages, particularly in psychiatry.
So it's going to function as a way of screening patients who will then need the more appropriate care would be done by physicians, but the screening possibilities are going to be expanded by the use of DA technologies.
There's a lot of interest in that, triage, screening, helping support patients between visits, a lot of opportunities with large language models. Obviously, there's a lot that needs to be sorted out. And one foundational question that we don't know the answer to is, what evidence ought to be required before we use these tools with patients? And that is an open question. There's no clear regulatory framework from the FDA on it, but it's something that in my role at the AMA, we're deeply engaged in having conversations about.
What about clinical algorithms?
Clinical algorithms are a cornerstone of how we provide consistency in the application of evidence-based medicine. Challenges with that are twofold. One, the technology friction, right, around how do we actually provide the nudges and the alerts and the notifications, the reminders that don't drive people, to be pull their hair out when they get all these alerts. But also, as you know, there's such an attack on science right now. And that is, I think, the most damaging, lasting legacy of COVID, the misinformation, the loss of trust. And as we try to elevate evidence-based medicine, which is what medicine and medical practice is based on, which is the underpinning of clinical algorithms, we have all of this policy work around us that's trying to remove autonomy from patients and physicians making decisions together to follow the best practices. So a lot of my time is standing up against misinformation, standing up against legislators and policymakers trying to insert themselves into the exam room to take away decision-making autonomy from patients and physicians. But again, if we can't get that foundational piece right around lifting up evidence, the technology is only going to do so much.
Yeah, very challenging things to first understand and then to regulate. And one of the things that we know has fantastic potential is the machine learning abilities of the AI, which could then give us a prediction of risk. The problem with this algorithm is that many times it's not very clear how the conclusions are reached. So I could imagine a scenario where I'm going to get a recommendation for a specific treatment, but I'm not going to understand why that specific recommendation applies to this specific patient. That's the black box idea.
It is. And there are definitely circumstances where it is very difficult to have explainability, understanding why the algorithm led to a particular conclusion. There are some developers and some approaches, and it doesn't work with every circumstance, where the algorithm might elevate and provide features. Here are some key drivers about patient characteristics or the environment that are leading to a decision. And they're definitely informaticists who are working on trying to develop those techniques so that we have more insights into what these models are doing. But it remains a huge challenge, because how do you develop that trust? How do you develop the framework that allows for the right evidence level to be required before these things come in the marketplace? And again, what I worry about is we flood the market with a bunch of tools. Mm-hmm. People start to use them. They don't work or they cause harm. And then we lose trust in the framework of using AI in medical practice. And that would be such a setback to innovation that we so desperately need.
What about liability?
Liability is a really important issue. And what happens when something goes wrong, when it was an algorithm that was the cause of the problem? And we're already seeing federal proposals that propose to have us as the clinicians solely liable. I don't think that's right. If a developer made an error or there was a problem with the underlying data set that's biased, that's causing patient harm, then the person best situated to mitigate the risk, and that's often the developer or the company or the manufacturer or the implementer, not the end user, they ought to be holding the liability or having some shared apportionment. But that is going to be sorted out in court. It's going to be sorted out at the federal level with policy, but it's a really, really critical issue. You can imagine that, what physician's going to be willing to buy a product if the product fails and they are responsible because of a manufacturing issue fundamentally with the underlying data. I think there's the potential for, if we get the liability piece wrong, the innovation market to be ended.
Should maybe some of these clinical AI-based applications be FDA approved?
So what FDA has regulatory oversight, what they do not, what they choose to do in terms of requirements, labeling, product review, is a squishy area. And they have tried to bring forward a few ideas about what the future framework might look like. But I think everybody agrees. I agree, the AMA agrees. The system set up in the 60s and 70s to regulate drugs and medicines as we historically have known them does not translate well or apply well to digital algorithms and tools. So we need to do something different, but it's not clear what that something ought to be.
So regulatory efforts, any efforts sort of boots on the ground that the AMA is part of in terms of becoming part of the AI development?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've done is we've created something called the Physician Innovation Network. You can Google it and find it pretty easy. We've got more than 19,000 people on this platform. It's free. PIN, AMA PIN. It's free. It's online. We don't make any money off of it. It is an interface to connect physicians, clinicians, students, trainees, postdocs with companies. And we never want to see another company bringing a product to the marketplace that's not informed by people who actually are in clinical workflows. And we've seen some wonderful interactions where companies have brought refined products into the marketplace. They've gotten products in the marketplace faster through interactions that they've had on this platform. And again, it's one small vehicle that we've put some money into because we believe that creating that space for connection is so important.
Yes. So that would be an opportunity for any physician to become part of this project.
It is open to everybody worldwide, AMA member or not, physician or not. We want people on the platform so that it can have some utility.
Any interest in maybe joining forces with venture capitalists, developers in the Silicon Valley or any other places? As we know that the scene is going to change rapidly.
Yeah, well, the AMA understands the power of venture capital. And so in 2016, we actually created a company in Silicon Valley, right on Sand Hill Road across from Stanford, called Health 2047. It is a completely wholly owned subsidiary of the AMA. Now, what does this company do? It is not a startup. The job of this company is to take insights that we have from the AMA, to lift up those insights, to lift up physician perspectives about using technology to solve problems, and then spin out companies. And so there are about a dozen companies that are physician-driven, physician-led, that are trying to make a difference in the marketplace. They're all for-profit companies, and that's fine. I hope maybe someday the AMA gets a little return on this. We haven't to date. But for us, if any one of these companies makes a difference, has an impact at a population level on a problem that we think is important from the AMA perspective, it's a win and a valuable investment.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. At the organizational level, any efforts to partner with APA or other medical associations to promote these policies, to do the work together?
Yeah, so we have a lot of deep interactions with the APA, and we're grateful for that. Obviously, as the AMA, the overarching umbrella organization for medicine, we routinely convene 190 states and specialty societies. We have our annual policy making session twice a year, and APA is always very well represented, along with the other related associations, physician associations and behavioral health. And we rely on that. I think that's one of the most special things about the AMA is that when I am talking to you, when I'm on TV, when I'm at the White House or on Capitol Hill, I'm not representing my opinion. I'm representing the democratically decided policies of the AMA that are shaped by our representatives from every state and every specialty in open debate. It's that convening power, that open democratic way of setting policy that really gives us the ability to stand up for all physicians across the nation. And obviously, we're grateful for all the partnership that APA continues to provide.
Any recommendations based on what's happening right now for our medical students, our residents?
Well, it's an exciting time, right, to be in training. It's a hard time, right? There's a lot of uncertainty. I work with residents almost every time I'm in the operating room taking care of patients, and they see what's happening. They see the pressure. They see the weight on people's shoulders as we're trying to get through our day, and there's a prior authorization that needs to be dealt with, or some other administrative hassle. And so, what I tell residents is, physicians are smart people. There will be challenges with the delivery system and how it's organized and how we get paid, but ultimately, we'll always have a job. That job will be fulfilling because at our core, the profession is one of the most satisfying things that I could ever imagine devoting my life to, which is healing and caring for others.
Yeah. One of the challenges that I'm curious about, right, as a medical student, as a resident, when we learn about things, we need to learn about what's normal between what's abnormal. And it sounds like one of the major opportunities that we have with the AI is that it can take the normal evaluations away from physicians. Would that affect training? We need to train on hundreds of cases of normal before saying that something is abnormal.
Yeah. There's this whole concept of precision education, AI generated, AI backed. And the idea is that rather than have a resident be in a time-based curriculum where you see 100 cases of this and 50 of that, and it's 3 years, no matter what happens, but to truly help that transition to a competency-based medical education framework. But that requires data. It requires a lot of information to help personalize the journey of a trainee through both medical school and residency. But there are leading centers that are trying to figure this out. And the AMA has been trying to lift up a framework around precision education because we think there can be some tremendous value to really help target the education that students and trainees are getting as they're going through the process.
Definitely. So you're almost talking about an adaptive learning type of a situation. The moment you master something, you don't need to do another 100 cases of that. You can move to the next level of difficulty, which again would be a place where AI could offer tremendous opportunities. From a patient's perspective, anything that these are very rapidly changing times, and I could imagine somebody would come to an office and we'll see that we have AI-based assessments is going to worry not only about privacy but about the quality of the interactions and how much their physician will know them.
I think there's a lot that can be done using technologies to change, improve, enhance the patient experience. I think about my experience as a patient, as a healthcare, user, scheduling my colonoscopy. What a pain, right? I have to make a phone call. I have to call somebody back. It gets changed, all these things. Why can't there be an app for that, right? There's lots of reasons. So there's sort of those friction points that I know technology is getting better at helping us manage to just make the experience of accessing the healthcare system better. But we've also got to remember that there are so many people in America and across the world that struggle to use technology for lots of reasons, that don't have access to a computer, an iPad, an iPhone, or broadband internet. that we can't allow to be forgotten by a system that's so technology centered that there's a digital divide that pushes them aside. And so we've got to make sure that as we're thinking about building tools and changing the delivery system, that is inclusive for everybody.
One of the things that you mentioned in your lecture is that it's very important for you to make sure that everybody has access to care. So with the advent of the AI, and there are limitations, people in other parts of the world do not have access. But how can we maybe leverage some of these AI developments to maybe improve access?
Yeah, certainly. I think there's a lot of opportunity with digital health at large. You just look at telehealth, right? What has telehealth done around care access for people in remote and rural areas? It has been a game changer. Being able to do remote visits, right, as one example of a place that there's been a real impact today. But we continue to fight each and every day to make sure that every American has access to healthcare, that every American has access to quality, credible coverage, and that we finally get some teeth in the mental health parity law so that when people have an insurance card, they could actually use it to see you.
Augmented versus artificial
Augmented.
intelligence.
Yeah.
Augmented.
Yeah. So we like to use the phrase augmented intelligence because the goal isn't to replace you. It's not to replace me. It's to boost the capability of what I'm able to do unassisted. And obviously that sort of gets us out of the idea of having this artificial robot doctor, but rather a human that gets the best of both worlds, that can lean on the technology when we need it most.
Any final concluding thoughts?
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a treat to be here at the APA meeting, and I've enjoyed reconnecting with so many colleagues. I didn't realize how many psychiatrists I knew until I got to this meeting. I'm running into people from all over the country. But I am so also grateful for everyone who contributes their time and their energy to this specialty, because we need good mental health across America.
And I want to thank you for your tremendous policy and advocacy efforts, and for your amazing research, for everything that you do, and for participating in this conversation today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.